Morning, folks. Well, we're done for today. Not done for the class with the landscape of college football and the portal and attrition that is ever ongoing. I guess would be the way. We're going to continue to recruit. Obviously, February signing day, and then probably on in through the summer as we get ready for fall camp. But for today, everybody that we anticipated getting an NLI on, we got. Felt like we, had a good class put together, needs that were important to us. Feel like it's a solid class. We have this conversation every year. You don't really know until you get them out on the field and develop them. But we felt like the guys that signed with us today fit this place. What we're looking for on the field, positions of need, high school and veteran players, both about 50-50 in terms of how we organize the class to this point. And it was something that's important to us. We don't want to just go all one or the other. So we split it down the middle. And to be able to have a really good, solid class here at home in Utah with 9 guys signing already, and honestly, probably more like 14 or 15 total when you consider some preferred walk-ons that we are actively pursuing and recruiting as well. So we want to start here at home and build from there. We feel like it's a class that meets a lot of needs. 16 of these guys can be here in January, which is huge to go through spring ball. To have that many guys be able to add to the program, go through spring, get an entire offseason with Paul Jackson, our staff, nutrition, and learn the system, that's huge. That's a large number. That's a little bit more than what we were able to bring in before. And we, as I said, we really attacked every position in some way or the other. But we're not done. We'll continue to recruit through the holidays on into the spring semester and probably into August, as well as some attrition will create some other spots. But what questions do you have about the class and signing day?
I'm just curious, how much of an emphasis was it to bring in, especially JUCO transfers who had multiple years of eligibility remaining?
Well, I mean, we try to stay away from one-year guys unless we feel like just the position is in a place where we feel like the value of a 1 year is going to impact our ability to win games next fall. And so we're always looking for guys that have 2 and 3 years left when we're talking about transfers. It's not a deal breaker in every case, but it is definitely a strategic conversation. We don't want to have a room that is overloaded in the sense that you're going to have a ton graduate at one time, or you're going to have a guy maybe that can't find his way on the field and be frustrated. So strategically, we look for guys with 2 and 3 years. We feel like we can continue to develop them. But most of it is based off of need. The room itself, is it developed yet where you can play with what you have on the roster? Have the young guys in the room developed, or do we see a gap between young and old? And so we tried our best to attack those positions with those thoughts in mind. And as you mentioned, only one-year guy, but considering what we've graduated out of the safety room and the experience that Mo has on the field at a high level, felt like he really rounded out what we have. And he's got a bunch of versatility, can play several different spots.
Jacob Nielsen, KSL.com. I imagine with how many young guys you have on the team and returners, it's got to be sort of a balancing act with scholarship availability and everything. So how have you guys approached that with this recruiting class and considering all the current players that you have returning?
Yeah, I mean, we only had 10 seniors in this class. I guess when you consider Jacob South coming out a year earlier, he his body just kind of gave out. So I think probably you count 10, 11, maybe 12 graduates. So all the other spots that we're dealing with are through attrition. We've had a handful of guys that were just not seeing themselves get on the field as much as they'd like, that have decided to go in the portal and look for lower level schools. And so far we've been able to place a handful of those. So the class is bigger than maybe the senior class looks like. And from there, it's what do we need at each position? We've got a target number in mind at every spot. We try to stay around that. We're not always perfect at that to get to 85. We have the luxury of being at 85, honestly, because of the waiver that was put in place last year. In past years, that was not as easy, but we can get to 85. So anybody that leaves the program can be replaced immediately. And that's where we've utilized the numbers and how we're able to sign a class as big as we have. Because again, it wasn't a big senior class. There are a lot of young guys on the team, which is great. We want to build each class up so that you've got 25, 26 seniors a year. Similar to what we had a year ago. You saw how that worked. This year, a really small class. It typically creates some leadership concerns and just some depth concerns. We want to avoid that in years coming up.
Coach Al Lewis from KVNU. Of the guys coming in, though, none of them are offensive linemen. And you mentioned South, you mentioned Edwards, and Edwards has graduated or will leave. So you must feel good about the players you have at offensive line.
I love our class at O-line. We are still in the process of recruiting one spot. If we filled that one spot with a veteran player to add some depth and potentially a starting offensive tackle, depending on how everybody would go out in the spring and compete, we feel really, really good about the youth and the ability in the room. And that's why we took 2 high school in-state O-linemen that we thought were phenomenal players. So we are not done there. We are battling for a guy right now at one of those positions, but we didn't feel like the room needed an overhaul. Love the way these young guys are developing and feel like we've got a lot of starters in that room. They're just waiting to grow up and get on the field.
Anderson, Jason Turner from the Herald Journal. I did want to ask you a follow-up question about those 2 old linemen from the state of Utah. Those were guys that were pretty highly sought after, guys that had multiple Power 5 offers. And this is a position that you said, I remember that BYU game, your first year here, how you're like, we want to get better in that room. So how big of a deal was the beat out some highly known programs for those 2 in-state kids? Well,
in-state kids that stay at home that have been recruited by Power 5s outside the state, that's a huge win for us. We know that the strength of our recruiting base honestly starts with the offensive and defensive line. I mean, you look at what historically the best players in the state, the guys that have made the biggest impact, go on and play at the NFL, a lot of big guys up front on both sides, and then the linebacker and tight end position as well. But we've got to win some of those battles, keep those guys at home, and keep building our fronts here as best we can. So those were huge gets. A lot of Power 5 offers between the 2 of them, and they will be obviously developmental guys, but you'd like to think a couple years down the road they can factor in a big way.
Brian Phillips, Big Blue USU Aggie News. You brought in 3 safeties, a freshman, a sophomore, a JUCO guy, and a 4-year guy in Malone Latte. Do you expect all those guys to play the safety position? Could they maybe step up and play the striker spot? What are you thinking with those 3?
Well, we're typically playing with 3 on any given down, and with as much sub package stuff as we do, 4 to 5 safety / corners. We thought there was a lot of flexibility with the guys that we did sign. We saw the ability to slide guys around, use what we already have. We're really, really happy with what Dom and Ike are both doing. And I feel like we're going to just continue to add as much ability and skill to the room. But with our sub package, the way we like to get after people and play man coverage, you cannot have enough really good guys in space. So we thought there was a need, and that's where we went after. We feel like all those guys bring value.
Anderson, Jason Turner again. I wanted to also ask you about Jaden Bailey. Here's a guy that you had to really battle for. He committed during the summer, decommitted back in November. So how good did it feel to see your kind of persistence with him pay off? Yeah, I
thought Chucky did a great job with him. Probably much better job than I did when he decommitted. I got a little frustrated with the process, but we tried to take our emotions out of it, look at it from really just a skill standpoint. Great kid, great family. I think there was some thoughts in his mind. Do I want to go that far away from home, being from San Antonio? But having come out here on a visit with his family and really feeling like this was home, ultimately came back to us and had some really good offers and had a phenomenal year, MVP of the league that he played in at the highest level there in Texas. We all know that 6A football in Texas is really, really solid, and he had a great year. So I think Chucky did a phenomenal job and got to kind of give it to the family too, not giving up on the process, staying in contact with us, even though they were honest about the decommitment and just what they were thinking about and kind of struggling with. Ultimately came back to us, and I think he's got a great future ahead of him.
Coach, Trentwood with Deseret News again. You mentioned Malone Latte. I'm curious what that recruitment was like, how quickly you guys contacted him after he entered the transfer portal.
Pretty quickly after he went in the portal, we were in contact. I don't know if he reached out to us or we reached out to him initially, but I know he was being flirted by several schools. I know Cal was one of the first to offer. He's got a family of his own. He's got a little one and a mama there and family in the area. I think staying here close and playing in our style of defense were two big keys there. He is a one-year guy, but with the experience he's got on the field and really his versatility, he could play field, play boundary, play nickel, and honestly could play corner if he needed to. He's very, very versatile. We thought he was a guy we would be crazy not to take. He's a plug-and-play player in a lot of different areas and should be a 4-team special team impact player. So a lot of value in him.
Al, again, you just mentioned him on the portal. What I'm hearing from coaches is it sounds like to recruit the portal, you've got to act as fast as you can. You can't wait or something. Can you talk a little about that? And then the other thing that stands out to me is all the other guys from the South kind of have ties, or you can see how you got them. But where did Hiram Dewsnip come from as a freshman out of Florida?
We've got that's a good question. I'll answer that one in reverse. You never know. Somebody knows somebody. It's funny how that kind of people know each other and you get a phone call or an email or a text and like, hey, would you watch this guy? And our approach is we will really recruit anywhere in the country if guys truly are open to traveling. I mean, you look at our roster, some of our best players in recent history have come from all over the United States. I mean, our punter's from Australia. We got a tackle from Russia. And, I mean, DT was from Florida, and we've got guys from really everywhere. So we want to make sure though they are willing to leave. They're okay with traveling away from home. Some kids want to. Some kids want to go and have an experience, go and do something unique and something different. So that was just we got a couple guys on staff that got an email, got a phone call, and actually paid attention. It's like, hey, if you're willing to go, we're willing to recruit you. That's kind of how that happened. You're right. A lot of the other guys we do have contact with, or we at least knew enough about them in the earlier recruiting process, had crossed paths with them earlier in the process, that when they hit the portal, they either contacted us immediately or we knew they may be hitting the portal and we were able to, really reach out to them fairly quickly. The portal process is happening very quick. There's more people in the portal than there are available spots. And I think that's been documented enough that kids know that they can't wait and they can't be lazy about the process. They have to be proactive. So some of these guys reached out to us and we've evaluated them once they did. Some of them we saw them hit the portal and really just reached out because of either past relationships or just need. And there's a little bit of everything in that list. A lot of these guys are JUCO players in this particular case. So it was more of a traditional recruiting approach. Really saw them in the spring, saw them early in the fall, recruited them all year. So there are more veteran players from the junior college level this year than what we took last year. Although a guy like Micah Davis is not your typical JC guy. Played at Air Force, scored a touchdown against us last year. We still remember seeing, number 0 flying down the middle of the field. So we knew a lot about him. Javar Strong played for us at Arkansas State, had a good feel for who he was. Jalen Martin started his career at Cal. So even though some of these guys, they're graduated from junior colleges, they were at 4-year programs, Power 5 programs originally. And so that is a little bit of a non-traditional recruiting process, if that makes sense.
Hey, Coach, Patrick Mayhorn with the Ag Ship. How important was it to get McKay committed early and sort of to lead the class? And what does he kind of bring as a player?
Well, he brings tons of things as a player. I mean, 700-meter guy that can make every throw, to go head-to-head with Washington State on him and be able to get him to stay at home. He committed to us and then took a visit to Washington State with an offer. I can promise you that whole weekend I didn't get a lot of sleep. But he came back, said, Coach, Utah State's where I want to be. It's where I'm feeling at home. He's never wavered since. Went on to play and win a state championship off of an ankle injury. competitive, fast, mobile, can make every throw. He's a great guy to build around.
Eric Franzen with 106.9 The Fan. I want to ask you about two other high school recruits just from here in Cache Valley with Jackson Olson and Justice Enna. You already have a couple of Cache Valley kids on the roster, but getting a few more. What does that mean to your program, and what did you see out of them?
Well, you love to have kids that want to stay at home. Everybody's seeing the success that Ike is having on the field, and that's awesome to have a local kid that's playing at that high level. We think that both those guys have the same opportunity. You know, Justice was signed earlier in this process and went on mission, so he'll be coming back and getting in with us in January, which would be great. And we've got him listed as a D lineman. We really don't know if he's an offensive or defensive lineman. He's played both, but both sides of the ball really like him. And then Jackson, one of those kids that we got a chance to see play basketball, see in camps. Absolutely fell in love with him day one and recruited him early. He committed early, and we were really, really close to being able to get him here in January, which would have been awesome. But I just think it's great for the brand and great for the Valley to have some local guys that we think have really, really bright futures.
Brian Phillips again. Question about basically just junior college recruiting in general. A lot of these guys that are coming up and maybe have had redshirt sophomore years and will be coming in as juniors would have been high school seniors in 2020 when the COVID year hit and the NCAA made the decision to extend everyone's eligibility clock by a year, meaning that most colleges didn't have a lot of room for a lot of high school freshmen. Do you feel like this year and maybe possibly even next year, the junior college talent is going to be stronger than usual?
Well, I definitely think we're finding guys that are at the junior college level. Tavion Coleman is a great example that COVID just affected him in a way that shut down his recruiting almost completely. And you look at this list, you've got guys that just were under-recruited. The opportunities weren't there, and rosters were full. I think you add COVID and then you add portal. I believe there's going to be a lot of really good players that take the junior college approach to get on the field and get re-recruited and get a better look. There are a lot of programs that are really attacking the portal heavy, which is going to reduce your numbers for high school and JUCO players right now. COVID, as you mentioned, has attacked it on the front end, and there are guys that just got missed in the recruiting process. So we tried to take an approach that look at players. Don't necessarily look where they're coming from. What do they fit? High school or veteran, just in that sense. High school or veteran. Veteran being transfers from JUCOs or portal players. Do they fit the need and do they fit the culture? And we found a lot of value in the JUCO ranks. You know, I spent 4 years coaching that level and had some great players that played for me. And we've had success with those guys in the past. Had a tremendous amount of success at Arkansas State with Kansas JUCO players, Mississippi JUCO players, Texas. And so all those kind of previous wins for us along the way factored into us feeling like this is a place that we could go. And I like the guys that we have signed today, and I think they all fit us in their own way for different reasons.
Elaborate a little bit more for me about getting so many in-state kids in the high school and just kind of year 3 of the recruiting class, I guess, just how much more and more comfortable are you guys as a coaching staff? And then also tell me about Coach DJ's role in recruiting in-state kids.
Well, DJ does a phenomenal job. DJ has a passion for this place, having played here, has a passion for the state and high schools and knows every single coach in the state. And he is the primary in-state recruiter and does a phenomenal job. I said this when I got the job, and I meant it. I know every year is going to be different, but we are going to start at home. We made a ton of offers last year early in the process. We did not sign all those guys. There's no way to do that. We're chasing guys that have Power 5 offers. We're battling BYU and Utah head-to-head, the Pac-12, the Big 12. And honestly, nationally at this point, Utah players are traveling from coast to coast, which is scary because we'd love to keep them all here at home. We want to start at home. The needs that we have on the roster dictate how many high school kids we can take at each position. We only have so many numbers, and we have significant needs. And if that means we have to go take a JC or transfer player to be able to compete each fall to win championships, which is the standard here, we'll do that. But every opportunity we have to take a high school kid and develop them, we will absolutely do that. And we're always going to start in the state of Utah first. I mean, there's a great base here. But now every year is different. Some years have more than others. This year it was more big guys, more kind of mid-skill and big guys. Last year there was a ton of speed that went all over the country. So you just have to kind of take it as it comes, evaluate your needs, and then make offers and battle where you can. And hopefully in the future we will win more and more battles here at home. But this is, I think, a really, really good class with 9 guys. As I said earlier, probably more like 14 or 15 when you consider the preferred walk-ons that had 1AA and Division II offers that are going to come here instead. I think it's a great start and a great foundation for what we want to do.
Franzen, once again, your recruiting process, now that NIL is certainly much more of a thing this year than it was a year ago. What was that process like for you and your recruiting process and your coaching staff?
I will say this. These kids, every one of these kids chose this place, I think, for the location, for the culture, for the opportunity to win, the opportunity to play. None of these kids signed with us because of some promise as it pertains to NIL. They know that we are in the process of organizing and making operational a collective, which I think would be great for all the kids on our roster, not just signees, but every kid on our roster. And I know there are people that are working on that, but that's not what this recruiting process was about for the kids that signed. Now, in full transparency, it did come up a lot. It was a question that was asked a lot. A year ago, not very much at all, if any. This year, I would say almost every conversation, there was a question as to NIL, the opportunities here in the Valley, a collective, is there something in place? So it is becoming more and more a common conversation in the process of recruiting, and it's here to stay. It's only going to become more prevalent as we move forward. Anything else, guys?
Phillips again, real quick, Coach.
Go ahead.
Maybe just talk about Gavin Barfield real quick. Your other 4-year transfer. What are you looking for him coming into the spring and moving into fall camp?
Well, we want him to come in and compete for a job. He knew what the room looked like. He knew that that MJ and AJ had played great. That Max had come in and played well. We knew that Sione was probably going to put his name in the portal and just felt like he was kind of getting passed up athletically and wanted to find a place where he could impact. Gavin's got 3 years of eligibility. And so he's not a guy that's got to come in and play immediately, although he has the ability to do so. We had good conversations with the guys at Washington State. We watched all of his tape, both high school and anything that we saw from the games that he was on the field, and thought he was a super, super natural fit. Once we got to know him, felt even better about it. He's a guy that knows he's got to come compete, but not afraid of it. Makes our team better. Should be, again, a 4-team starter in terms of special teams and ability to plug and play on defense, if not as a solid role player, but potentially compete for a starting job. And that's what we tell them all. We're not guaranteeing anybody a starting job. We guarantee everybody the opportunity to fight for one. And he chose that and took the offer and committed, knowing exactly what he was stepping into. And I think we got a guy that can really run, that will play downhill, is extremely smart, and loves ball. And so he's already been out here on the West Coast, even though he's from Florida, but fits us and fits our defense really well.
We'll do one final question on signing day, if anybody has one, and then we'll transition into the bowl game.